Let's now talk about privacy and information rights. The rule of privacy is really a moral right for individuals to be left alone, free from surveillance or interference from other individuals and organizations. And this is a very timely topic now with the whole idea of the government, the United States government, and the PRISM system of actually listening to conversations and surveilling U.S. citizens with the goal of preventing terrorism. So I'm not going to make a moral judgment on that. It's just a timely conversation. So it's the right of individuals to be left alone, free from surveillance or interference. So information privacy within this global, broader view of individual privacy is a subset of privacy. Certain claims, in terms of attitude or certain information should not be collected at all, and individuals should control the use of whatever information is collected about them. So in a free society, these are the thought processes that individuals have as part of their freedom. So there's ethical issues related to e-commerce and privacy. And we have to question under what circumstances should we invade the privacy of others. And we'll get into that. There's a social issue, development of expectations of privacy, and what are privacy norms in today's world with disruptive technology, social networking technology, individual profiles, the whole thought process, such as Mark Zuckerberg, founder of Facebook, with the proclamations that privacy is dead. There are political issues, the development of statutes that govern relationships between record keepers and individuals. Again, in the media today, the government in looking at surveilling in much broader sense than was ever thought before, all under the name of national and homeland security. So political issues are ripe for this. So within the data-driven world of the internet and e-commerce sites, data can be collected very, very easily. PII, or personally identifiable information. Once much information thought to be as anonymous information is now easily captured. And some of it's captured based on permission by the user and consumer to allow information to be captured. But there's also behavior information. So you might give permission for them to take your name and your email address to send you correspondence of upcoming specials at your e-commerce site, but supposedly anonymous information, what pages you visited, for many consumers and users of the internet take exception to, this surveillance, if you will. So these are at odds and at issue. Types of data collected, as I mentioned: name, address, phone, email. The top one, Social Security, which is obviously combined with everything else. This information needs to be protected. And if it's not, the individual, the consumer, runs into the threat of identity theft. There are compliance areas, regulations, and many of them are mandated by the payment card industry, which I applaud them for. There's PCI compliance and governance, which is payment card industry standard, on how credit card information, how Social Security information is to be stored and hidden online or even physically within a store. The paper files and how they are locked up or they are burned and shredded on a regular basis. So bank and credit card information, age, gender, occupation, education, preference data, transaction data, behavioral clickstream data as you move through sites, which browsers you're using, and how you're using them. When you look even a step further into the whole world of digital wallets, the ability to use your smartphone as a transaction device based on the fact that your profile or your credit cards or your banking information is already in your phone for convenience at a point of sale, has to be balanced with how accessible or how hackable is that information and how protected that data is. Again, PII. This is an area that you, and a term that you absolutely need to know about and be conscious of in your career. Personal identifiable information. Okay, so with the advent of social networks and privacies, so much encouragement for people to share their personal information. It really poses challenges to maintaining privacy. Not only Mark Zuckerberg's and Facebook's proclamation that privacy is dead, the whole moving into facial recognition technology, tagging of individuals of their photos, and learning more and more about it. So there's a feeling that many people feel that there's huge debates going on. My personal data, I'm losing control over it as an individual of my personal information. And this is at odds with an organization or an e-commerce organization's desire to monetize not only the social network, but their e-commerce world that they're doing business on. Same issues are prevalent in mobile and location-based technology. So a lot more smartphone apps using GPS, tracking and targeting people as they move into or nearby venues, restaurants, store locations. I constantly get pinged by things like Path or apps like Path or Foursquare. Hey, you're nearby, baby. Do you want to come in and do some shopping? You know, this is on sale at Target today. You're nearby. You visited here before. It's kind of spooky, especially the first time you see this. And Path is interesting as an application because it can say, hey, you know, you're at TGI Fridays and your friends are driving by. Hey, let's go in and grab a beer or a hamburger together. So very, very interesting, but also while it can help with the social and entertainment value of socializing, it's also privacy. There's a huge impact on privacy. So Mobile Device Privacy Act is still in the works. It requires informing consumers about data that's being collected. Still evolving. So some of the technologies we've talked about through the marketing campaigns and are a great advantage to marketers are the ability to use profile data and behavioral data to create digital images that characterize individuals and groups. Yes, you can do this at a personal level, which makes it privacy concerning, but many companies also use anonymous profile and trends and group behavior to kind of address that issue, or at least subjugate back to the consumers who are worried about privacy, talk about making the information not individually specific, but within a persona or a target segment. So there are applications and campaign technologies that are working on that. Advertising networks, as we've seen, actually track the consumer and their browsing behavior as they go from site to site. We saw that on the DoubleClick example. And the advantages here for advertisers and e-commerce and social networks that are being sponsored by brands and e-commerce retailers and distributors is they can dynamically adjust what the user sees on the screen based on what landing page they're on, the content that they're seeing, the ads that are being served. Advertising, Google AdWords programs really target on this and serve up ads that are specifically tailored to the viewer that's on the site at that particular point in time. So, From a business perspective, it increases the effectiveness of the advertising. It allows advertisers to deliver free content, which generates more eyeballs and stickiness to a site. But with the targeted ads, will ideally increase conversions and then increase product sales and even increase demand for new products and services. But again, the critics are looking at this realistically. It undermines the expectation of anonymity and privacy, and many consumers feel that it's creepy. How do you know that I was just on the Target site and now I'm on the Kohl's site and you're still pitching me the new blender? That's a little creepy. At least that's the feeling of some, and maybe that has to do with that individual's consumer's maturity level within the adoption curve of technology and comfort. Personally, I'm an early adopter, so I'm a bit more mature to these types of things. It bothers me less. But I would say people of my demographic that are less technology savvy probably feel that that's creepy. So consumers may show significant opposition to unregulated, they will show opposition to unregulated collection of personal information. So regulations still are not keeping pace with personal information, and that's an ongoing area of improvement. So how's the government getting involved? There's various laws involved with and law enforcement agencies that monitor internet without users' knowledge. We're talking about the Patriot Act. We're talking about PRISM, sometimes without judicial oversight. So a lot of this has to do with Homeland Security. Have to be aware of that. That's ongoing, and it's in the news very heavily right now in 2013, the summer and fall of 2013. Government agencies are the agencies are the largest users of private sector commercial data brokers. So, the commercial data brokers that are collecting data, analyzing trends, getting individual personal information, the government's looking at it. So, and then retention of information by internet service providers and search engines, as well as social networks of user data. You'll see recently in the news, Facebook and Google have and Microsoft have been disclosed that they have shared information with the government when asked, and it's typically on a very minute percentage of the millions and billions of users, but it's still sharing that information with the government level. So keep an eye on that. Legal protection. The United States has a Constitution with the First, Fourth, and 14th Amendment, freedom of speech, unreasonable search and seizure, and due process of law. There are specific statutes at federal and regulations at federal and state level, and then there's common law, common sense about privacy. That when you're taking legal action and you need to do that, will work in the favor when you get into the court system. So informed consent. U.S. firms can gather and redistribute transaction information without individuals' informed consent. That's a tough pill to swallow for many. It's illegal in Europe, still open within the United States. Informed consent is about opting in or opting out. So one of the things that I've been heavily involved with since my early days of social and e-commerce has been the whole idea of permission-based marketing and permission-based email for email campaigns. And I've been around long enough to have seen the trends shift with the ICANN spam laws, which are very, very specific. You cannot be sending out email campaigns through collected email addresses to individuals without their express opt-in permission. Now, years ago, going back 5, 8, 10 years ago, e-commerce sites, content sites would allow you to join or sign up or get information, but it would you would have to opt out specifically as an individual to get access to information or access to purchasing goods. You would have to opt out of getting the free emails and newsletters and things like that. That's illegal. Instead, you have to have an unchecked box that says, I want to opt in as a user at the other end of the laptop or a mobile device and say, I want to opt in. Yes, I want to give you my permission. Not the other way around where I have to say, oh no, I forgot to opt out of that and I forgot to undo the checkbox. So those autofill checkboxes, that's not the way to go, and make sure that your sites are designed from a user experience way to handle that. Many U.S. companies merely publish information about their practices or privacy policies, or use opt-in as a default. All right, well, you need to have privacy policies. You need to publish your practices, but don't think that that covers everything. You have to follow through responsibly. Okay, so the Federal Trade Commission's Fair Information practices have guidelines, but not necessarily laws, which are used to base assessments and make recommendations. Sometimes are used for basis of law. COPPA, which is used especially in underage children's sharing of underage children's information, typically I believe 13 and under, are then can be used in courts of law. Again, there are guidelines. Working at Martin Kane as the Chief Information Officer, we did a lot of contests and online promotions. And obviously when you're on mobile and websites and you're running contests on children's or teen sites, music sites, entertainment sites, on social networks, we did a lot on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube contests. You have these, under 18, 13, under 13 level consumers, and they have to be protected. So while these were guidelines, we made sure that we strictly complied to any guidelines regarding COPPA, and any clients that we took on for outsourcing their contests and online promotions. We were very strict about that and had all the follow-up documentation on that. So in principle, the fair information practice has to do with notice of your principles, choices that you use in terms of how you protect data, access levels and who can access what information, how you secure your information about individuals. It also has to do with enforcement and restricted collection of data. Certain data may not be collected and will be discarded maybe through after the life of the transaction or the message. Okay, so the Federal Trade Commission again has a new privacy framework that began publication in 2010. Privacy by design, very simplified rules. So again, greater transparency into what the privacy rules are. Privacy as the main gist behind how you handle. Privacy is taken as the common ground, and then you have to give your permission. In 2012, industry best practices report came back, and these do not track mobile privacy were some of the top issues. Data brokers and how they're sharing information, large platform providers, how they're sharing information are of great concern, and the development of self-regulatory codes are areas that continue to be important and need to be followed as best practices. Okay, so in Europe, they seem to be ahead in privacy protection and are very stringent on comprehensive and regulatory approaches. So their communication directive, the EC's directive on data protection in 1998, broadens privacy protection throughout all EU communities and countries. The Department of Commerce in the U.S. has a safe harbor program, and U.S. firms that wish to comply with this directive need to look at that, and they probably should more so than not. But as you know, many companies do not. So, private industry regulation and safe harbor programs, private policy mechanisms to meet the objectives of government regulations without government involvement, so self-regulation, privacy seal programs, good housekeeping seals, showing that they're complying, organizations are complying with privacy regulations, even though they're not being pushed by the government, but they're taking upon themselves as a thought leader and a privacy leader. Trustee, electronic trust programs. So there are associations which help specify and provide guidance. So OPA, Online Privacy Alliance, NAI, Network Advertising Initiative, that work on technical specifications for ad tracking and ad notice. There's privacy advocacy groups that are there to help, and there's emerging privacy protection businesses that are they're commercializing the ability to help businesses with their online privacy compliances. So there are technological processes that and solutions that can be used to help with privacy. Spyware blockers, which are there to stop spyware from taking your information. Same with pop-up blockers. Secure email capabilities. Cookie managers. Disk and file erasing programs, which can erase cookies. Policy generators, which can help you with developing privacy, at least getting your templates together at a very detailed level and then tailoring that document. Privacy policy readers, and public key encryption, which has been around for a long time prior to the internet and web commerce, to secure data through very strong encryption algorithms. So when certain things like credit card transactions are going through, very important.